If the first question you ask before making a business investment is, what's the ROI? Then you've already lost and you're making the wrong decision. ROI measures what you can already kind of predict, but the best leaders make decisions based on where the biggest outcomes can't yet be predicted. I'm gonna share with you 6 reframes in this video that will help you think like some of the greatest leaders on the planet, including Bezos, Steve Jobs, etc. And I'm gonna show you specific examples of how they've approached particular investment decisions in their businesses and how they can apply it to you as well. So let me start off by sharing the story real quick of Amazon Prime. Bezos in 2005 decided to launch Amazon Prime, $79 a year. Everyone thought he was crazy. How does this even make sense in the short term? Free, unlimited 2-day shipping? Like, what's going on here? But he wasn't asking what's the ROI on free shipping. He asked himself a different question. He's asking what kind of customer behavior is this going to create? Now, 20 some odd years later, we've seen the impacts of Amazon Prime and what that has done. Let's have a look at another example. In 2011, Reed Hastings, the then CEO of Netflix, decided to start spending billions of dollars creating Netflix-owned content, right? Like original films on Netflix. Again, everyone thought he was crazy. The House of Cards, as an example, was reported to cost $100 million, right? So they're now competing with the biggest Hollywood production houses. And the question wasn't so much about what's the ROI on this. Instead, what Hastings was asking was a different question. He's asking, what business do we become if we own the content? And we've seen how that's played out since then, right? Big bets outweigh small-term ROI thinking. Let's look at one more example. Steve Jobs in 2001 announced that Apple was going to start opening up stores. And at the time, there were no good examples of tech companies like that with any good examples of having done that. So Dell had done it very expensively and it failed miserably. None of that stuff was working. And Steve said, who cares? We're going to do it anyways. And again, in the short term, it wasn't about ROI. Steve wanted to create an environment where people could touch and feel the art that Apple was creating. And in so doing, they would become evangelical customers for life. And we know how that's panned out. So if we look at these 3 stories, what they all have in common is most mediocre business owners ask, what's the ROI? That's kind of the baseline of how most people approach life and decisions in their business, whether it's working with an agency or investing in ads or whatever it is. But the great CEOs are asking, who do we become as a company because of this decision? And the thing to remember is this, is a lot of times the biggest opportunities are the ones you can't even think or see now. So I'm gonna help you unpack this as we go through this. I'll give you an example from my own life. So back in 2009, after struggling in business for 3 years, I made the decision to invest in a mastermind. It was $18,000, which is more money than I made in the previous year. I said, you know what, screw it. I need to do this because I have to do something different to move forward and learn and grow. So I didn't have the money. I put it on 2 credit cards. I made the investment. And that first mastermind was the domino that cascaded everything else that came from that. Met a couple people. We became very good friends to this day. We've been at wedding parties. We've traveled all over the world together. How do you put an ROI on that? There were business deals that were done in that mastermind that I never could have even foreseen. And I never would have asked the coach, hey, like, how do I know I'm going to get any business deals? I didn't ask questions like that. I didn't worry about what the ROI was. I went into that decision knowing I don't know what this is going to look like, but I'm going to make it work because I know this is who I need to become in order to get where I want to go. So one of the things that I think about with respect to ROI thinking is it's very small thinking. So if I look at that mastermind decision, I stayed in that mastermind for about a year, then I moved into another mastermind. And in that other mastermind, I happened to run into someone in the hallway who I had known loosely online, but we hadn't really done much business together. We connected, had lunch, and after that, a couple months later, we started doing business together and we become one of their biggest partners in supporting the work that they were doing because we had a lot of synergistic complements in our businesses. Because of that, I got invited to a small private mastermind they were hosting in New York City. 10 people in the room. I get there. One of the people in the room is the CEO of Hay House. Wow. Years prior, my vision was to write a book with Hay House. So he's in the room, amazing, amazing human, Reed. And I approach him and I say, hey, I've got this idea for a book. Long story short, a couple days later, he sends me a proposal. We get the book in order. A year and a half later, that book becomes a #2 New York Times bestseller. I get on shows like The Doctors, The Dr. Oz, etc. It leads to a multiple 7-figure 2-book deal right after that with Rodale Press. And that leads into a whole other cascade of things. So why am I sharing this with you? Is because if I just ask myself, what's the ROI I'm going to make on this initial $18,000? That would have been so limited in my thinking. Because the thing is, I would never at the time have been able to imagine all of the things that would have unfolded by putting myself in the environment, by making the commitment, and then making it right. And with that said, I want to lead into 6 reframes that will help you make better decisions so you don't limit yourself with small thinking that is linear and only focused on ROI. So the first question you want to think about is this. Your approach with the decision to make, right? You're hiring an agency, you're going to run some ads, you're going to join some type of whatever it is. If this works, what's the upside? Okay, I want you to think about this because a lot of us humans tend to focus on the downside. We catastrophize things. Oh my God, what if this doesn't work out? So let me just use the example I gave you earlier. I'm approaching an $18,000 investment. What if this doesn't work out? I lose $18,000. But like really, like I have to be really retarded not to be able to get some type of value from an $18,000 mastermind, okay? So the worst case scenario, in anything you do, the worst case scenario is you lose that money. You can always make the money back. You can always make the money back. Never forget that. Okay, so what's the upside? The problem is that we don't know what the upside is, but we know what the downside is. So $18,000 is the worst it can get, okay? It's the worst it's gonna be. But the upside is infinite. There's no ceiling on the upside. As an example, we had a client a number of years ago. Ryan came in to work with us. He was struggling in his practice. He had a family of 6 to feed, took out a $40,000 loan just to survive. He invested a portion of that to work with us. Coming in, he's starting at 0. 3 months later, he goes from that to making $356,000 per month. This is during COVID. By the summer of that year, 2020, they're now at $1.2 million per month. By 1 year later, more than $3.2 million per month. So what was the worst case scenario in that situation? Worst case scenario was he would have lost the investment and made no money. Okay, well, it is what it is. It wasn't going to be much worse than where he was. Best case scenario, he couldn't even have fathomed the growth that he had in the amount of time that we worked together, let alone who he gets to become in the process. 2, what's the cost of not doing this? So things might be good. Your practice is doing well. Revenue is good. Maybe you're busy. Maybe you're not. I don't know. Like you have to get associated to the cost of inaction. And the problem with doing well is that you settle for mediocrity. I don't care where your business is at. I'm sure it's doing well, but there's always another level. We typically work with practice owners, practitioners who are doing, $500,000 plus in revenue, but they're not satisfied there. And it's not about not being grateful. You can be grateful for what you've created, but high achievers and winners want more, not necessarily because they're greedy to make more money. It's because that's just who they are. They want to make more, they want to contribute more, they want to grow. So what's the cost of not doing this? The real cost is continuing to play small. And I don't care how much money you're making. If you're $1 million a month, $5 million, it doesn't matter. You're still playing small. And I want you to get associated to that feeling of insignificance because you might think you're God's gift to the world. That's fine, but you're still playing small, just like I am, right? I'm not saying I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm just saying all of us are playing small. And by not doing the very thing that we know internally might be the right decision for us to move to the next level, the cost of not doing this is not just a financial cost. It's a cost of you not being able to spread your message and share your greatness and build a bigger legacy or whatever is important to you. Okay? As an example, I've gone to see a number of World Cup games. I'm Canadian, so I've obviously supported the Canadian team. And a lot of these have been last minute decisions to jump on a plane and spend a couple $1,000s to go watch a game. I don't have to do that. But the cost of me not doing that has been losing out on really potentially amazing memories. I don't know if they're going to win or lose or play like shit, but I'm willing to take the bet because what's the upside? Well, the upside is amazing things can happen, just like it happened the other week when I randomly walked across, the team hotel, see the team coming onto the team bus. I happen to know the CEO of Canada Soccer. I didn't know they're staying there. I ended up sending him a text. We get together that night just to connect in person because we hadn't done so in person up to that point. And all this cool stuff happens as a result of that. That never would have happened if I decided to stay home and just play it safe. Okay? So what's the cost of not doing this? It's tricky to answer truthfully because you don't really know the cost because you don't really know the upside. But I'm here to tell you that the upside is absolutely infinite and the cost of not exploring that should eat at your soul. Okay, third reframe with respect to making better decisions in your business is how I think of things. And what I've noticed the most successful business owners that I've known and worked with over the years, they all have this same mentality. They're not looking for A to Z. They're looking for A to B. So the question is, if all this did was help me go from A to B, not necessarily A to Z, would this still be worth it? And the difference there is that very successful people they just need one idea, one nuance, one tweak, and it's all paid for itself because they have so much leverage in the ecosystem they've already built. Whereas people who are starting from scratch and really struggling and expecting everything, they have so much work to do that they need everything. And so therefore, it's like there's just so much at stake if they make the wrong decision. A number of years ago, I invested $60,000 in a speaking mastermind, which I was not really impressed by. It was not a great setup. And initially I was pissed. And then I said, Jerry, don't be a little bitch, put your big boy pants on and make the most of this. And I asked myself, okay, well, this is maybe not exactly what I wanted in the way that I thought about it. But if all this did was give me one opportunity to speak on stage, I'm sure this will be worth it. And that's exactly what happened. I ended up speaking at a nutrition conference. It ends up being an unbelievable opportunity that opened up business and just impact beyond what I could have thought about at the time. So even though the investment in that particular mastermind I wasn't too enthralled by, that one opportunity was worth all of it 10 times over. So I don't go into any decisions or relationships with, I got scammed before. No, because if you got scammed before, and I'm not saying there's some shitty people out there, for sure there are, but it's, are we willing to give it better meaning? Are we willing to find the golds as opposed to focusing on the dirt? Because even in the shittiest of experiences, there's always light. And it's whether or not we're going to focus on that or focus on how someone, pulled a fast one on us. Number 4, is this building an asset? I loathe social media. I posted a video recently about like why I loathe it. When I look at social media, I'm thinking about like Instagram and TikTok and the short form nonsense. And listen, there's some value that I get. I can't stand it personally. I don't like creating things that disappear because the thing I value more than anything in my life is my time, just like I'm sure you do. You can always make more money. You can never make more time. So if I'm looking at investing in anything, I'm looking at, is this building an asset? So why would you own a home instead of renting? Just think about that, okay? If you own a home, why do you own the home? Because at some level, it's an asset. And what does that mean? Well, an asset appreciates over time, but more specifically, an asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of it. So the ironic thing about owning a house is it's actually not an asset. It's a liability because you're paying for it every month until you sell it, in which case it becomes an asset. So what's funny is that most people will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars as a down payment, in addition to thousands or tens of thousands a month in recurring mortgage payments, thinking that's an asset. And it's nothing more than a liability until the point where you sell it or cash flow it. Yet when it comes to business, they're like, well, what's the ROI? Like, hold on, dude. So let me give you an example. With YouTube, I will venture to say this, and you can put this on record. Creating valuable content on YouTube is the single most important asset you can build for your personal brand and your business. If you are not creating useful content consistently on YouTube, you will become as irrelevant as dust. And I share this with all the love in the world, and I'm sharing this for one specific reason. A lot of people that we speak with, they're like, what's the ROI on YouTube? And my answer is, well, what's the time frame? I'm telling you, it's small fry thinking. You're thinking small, and small thinkers don't become big leaders. Let me give you an example. So my previous business, I built my channel to 300,000 subscribers. I posted a shit ton of videos. Half of them, I don't even know what the hell I was doing. Eventually, I kind of got into, understanding how to do that. And I didn't realize the impact that those videos would make. Several years later, after I sold that company, started Healthpreneur, about 2 to 3 years in, I had a client come into our mastermind. And in one of our coaching calls, he's like, hey man, do you know the story about how I found you? And I said, I have no idea. You saw an ad? He's like, no, I actually saw one of your coffee enema videos on your previous channel, because I had a health business. A coffee enema video because I was doing coffee enemas for a moment. So I shot a video about that. He comes across that video. And when he told me, he's like, when I saw that video, I said to myself, I'm going to work with this guy. Not from a coffee enema perspective, but from a building a health business perspective. So amazing dude, Kevin. He's gone on to build an absolutely amazing business, helping people with osteoporosis. He's become the leader in this space. He's impacting millions of lives. So if you think about, like, is this building an asset? I posted videos. I created videos like this. I posted them years ago. I didn't even know who they're helping. And randomly, I get some person come into my world to help them with their business who saw one of the assets I had posted maybe 6 or 7 years prior. Is that worth it? You better fucking believe it's worth it. Like, we built our house in Mexico. I'm building an asset that I can cash flow forever. And then I can also use for business retreats and all sorts of other cool things. Is that an asset? Yes, it's an asset. Number 5. So sometimes you might not be building an asset, but it might be building something else, which are skills and capabilities. So is this investment going to increase my capabilities? So if you think about how we make decisions, and I learned this from my coach, Dan Sullivan at the time, it's called the 4C framework. We all start off with a commitment. We're going to commit to doing something. Then it requires courage to do the fucking thing, because on the other side of courage are capabilities, and the capabilities lead to confidence. But the thing is, everyone wants confidence. They want to know for sure that this is going to work, that they're going to have the skill and like whatever the outcome. But that's the last piece of the puzzle. First, you need to commit, because in that process, you have to go through the shit to build the capabilities. So when you're investing in a coaching program or a mastermind, or if you work out with a trainer, is this investment going to help me increase my capabilities? If it's going to help you increase your capabilities, then why would you not make the investment? I've invested millions of dollars in self-education, not schooling, which is a complete waste of time post, once you have your degree. I'm talking about like actual learning about personal development, business, marketing, like how to be better. Every single one of those investments helps me increase my capabilities to become a better communicator, better at sales, better to lead my team, better to figure out marketing, all these different things. So whether I'm buying a $500 course or a $50,000 mastermind, I'm always thinking about, will this increase my capabilities? And the answer is obviously yes. So maybe in this case, investing in a mastermind, like the example I gave you earlier, is not building an asset for me, but it's helping increase my capabilities. Why is that important? Well, if I become a more skilled and valuable contributor to my business or to this world, then I make more money. So anything you can do to increase your capabilities is important. Now, I would venture to say that a lot of practitioners make the cardinal sin of over-indexing on more certifications and degrees and letters behind their name, which quite honestly don't make a difference because you already know how to help people. And I would index a little more heavily on personal growth and learning how to run a business, because those have the biggest asymmetric returns. Like if you get one more certification about how to do something, that really doesn't change anything for your business. But you understanding how to generate demand changes the rest of your life. It sets you up for like generational wealth if you know how to do this properly. And the 6th reframe to help you make better decisions as opposed to just relying on ROI is very simply, is this reversible? And the answer in pretty much every situation is yes. Okay, like if you get married, it's reversible. Most people get divorced, right? If you build a house, is it reversible? Technically, yes. I mean, you could just sell it, no big deal. I guess the only one that might be less reversible would be a gender change. I mean, but even now, who knows? But I'm using these as an extreme example because in your business, you might engage with an agency, you might run some ads, you might invest in something, you might hire someone. All of that, you're not tied to for the rest of your life, right? Now, obviously, you want to do your best to follow through on your commitments and making sure things work. But just understand that if things don't work out the way you want them to, it's fine. You can always make the money back, right? You can always change and pivot if you have to. It's not the end of the world. $18,000 to me at the time felt like all I had. So yes, like subjectively and relatively, it felt like a lot of money. But in the back of my mind, I knew that I would always find a way to make this work. So it wasn't like, oh, man, like this is it. It's over. Like there's no way back. Every decision you're making can be reversed. I don't think you should back out of commitments. I don't think you should be a flaky type of person like that. I think you should commit and follow things through, but understand that you're not tied, set in stone for the rest of your life, okay? So these 6 reframes have helped me personally navigate some really important business decisions and life decisions over the past 20 some odd years that I think have helped me out a lot. But I also study a lot of very successful leaders, like some of the examples I gave you earlier. And they all have these very, very similar traits. Very, very seldomly do they look at what's the ROI. Instead, they ask the fundamental question, who does our company get to become because of this decision? So as we finish this off, I just want to leave you with this. Average business owners ask, what's the ROI? Great leaders ask, who do I become because of this decision? So the question I'm going to leave you with here is, do you want to play it safe or do you want to build something great? And if you're a health practitioner and you want to build something great, then you can click below this video to learn more about our Healthpreneur Mastery. If you're interested in scaling your business with this level of thinking and my help specifically in your business.